Hello and welcome to episode number 25 of the Just Flying series. Lights, flaps, all good to go. Join me on this rather lovely day here at Wellington. And we won't need the whole runway, so I'll just head for the nearest intersection. Not too sure how this flight is going to go because we have winds of 23 gusting 41. You can see the clouds visibility in the rain, so this is not likely to be the smoothest flight I've ever had. If this was real life, I'd be at home with a cup of coffee rather than at an airport. But fortunately this is X-Plane, where I am actually at home with a cup of coffee, but I can still make the flight anyway, as it doesn't really matter if we crash and die in a simulator. Although I will try not to do that anyway. Well, let's go for it. We're up. With living in the UK, unless something very major happens, such as the Christchurch earthquake, news from New Zealand doesn't really make it over here. For me personally, it's a little bit different because I do use YouTube when I'm scenery making. Trying a search for landing videos at a particular place can sometimes uncover interesting things and give me information which might not be available elsewhere. So my YouTube now has the phrase New Zealand in its memory banks as keywords that I do use from time to time. So occasionally in the recommended videos section I might get something random from NZ. Now I'm flying with real world weather set in X-Plane, and what we've got isn't a big surprise because I got one of those recommended videos on YouTube which was about the weather. And specifically it was all to do with flooding from very heavy downpours of rain. That is going on in Nelson and around the top of South Island at the moment. And as we're at the bottom of North Island, that's not very far away at all, so I was expecting some atrocious weather, and indeed we certainly do have that. Although this is fine for me in the sim, but if any of my viewers or scenery downloaders are from that part of NZ, hopefully you're doing okay. But being the other side of the planet, we're having summer in the UK and have had a bit of a heat wave going on. But the last couple of days we've had some thunderstorms, big downpours of rain and flooding over here too. Now, I live in the city of Birmingham myself, and if you don't know UK geography, that's roughly in the middle of the country. Which is quite nice because when we do have really bad weather events, it has to cross the water to get here to our island, and it then hits the coast first. That's where they did have storms, rain, flooding, weather warnings and all sorts, but by the time it gets inland enough to reach me, those kind of things often seem to have partly burnt themselves out, so it tends to be not quite as bad here. And, well, certainly not bad enough to have floods anywhere at the moment anyway. Now that's a bonus from my point of view. So come to Birmingham and you may have a better chance of surviving global warming. They say global warming is responsible for these more extreme weather events, and I will admit that I've not done too much digging into the science of it, but it does seem to be that's the case. So we may well have to get used to it, because there seems to be very little actually being done about that right now. And even some of the things that are happening are making no difference anyway. It's one I found out about a few weeks ago, which is carbon offsetting. And the way that works is that for somebody, well, let's say an airline, because we're doing an aeroplane video, they produce quite significant carbon emissions, and they can work out roughly how much carbon they're going to dump into the atmosphere this year, and come up with an actual figure for it. Now, trees capture carbon from the atmosphere and therefore remove it. So if you do a bit of maths with those two figures, you can work out how many living trees taking carbon away are equal to the amount of carbon you produce, and come up with a figure to cancel each other out, so the number is a net zero. So the airline can then offset their emissions by going to people like commercial logging operations and paying a fee for a year to say, okay, for this next 12 months, this area of trees that you have, here's some money to not cut them down, so this area of forest is saved. It sounds good in theory, doesn't it? Now, this is an American thing where I learnt this from, so I don't know if the rules are different in other countries. But even if they are, America is still quite a big place, and they do quite a lot of offsetting there. So this is a significant amount regardless. And what the rules are is that the logging company can perfectly legally sell off an area of forest for offsetting and say that we won't cut them down for a year when they were not planning to cut them down that year anyway. So the airline is paying this offset money to save some vegetation that didn't need saving, and therefore it's making absolutely no difference at all. But the airline can claim to be going green and offsetting its emissions. And there's plenty of other green initiatives which are equally bullshit. Recycling, for instance. For me in the UK, if I have a plastic bottle, it counts as having been recycled if it gets exported out of the country. So in theory, if I post my plastic container to my mate in Spain, and he then goes down and throws it into the sea, that still counts as being recycled on the UK statistics. For an aviation analogy, a 747 can fly on one engine. So if 3 of them have stopped working, hey, no problem, we've still got one left, so no need to worry. And I think before anything genuine happens regarding combating global warming, we're going to need to get to the point of all the engines failing on your plane and people being forced to say, oh fuck, now what are we going to do? Although I'm not virtue signalling, I'm just as bad as everybody else. If I wanted to help save the planet, I'd turn off my computer and that would save some electricity. I'm still here, so that kind of answers that question, doesn't it? But once we do get to that point of oh shit, a number of the older generation will have died off by then. And that will be an interesting day due to the kind of people who will be left behind to pick up the pieces of that mess. Although I don't think this flight will be long enough for me to have a proper rant about that, so maybe next time. Yeah, we'll see. This flight, by the way, today it's Wellington to NZPP Paraparaumu. I have been holding out on that airfield, as I had been keeping my fingers crossed that I wouldn't have to do it. You'll know him as Kiwi the Iwick, which is his Explain Org forum name. And that's the guy who made scenery for places like Auckland and Vanuatu, which are both really good. I have spoken to him with forum messages a few times, and he's a really nice and helpful guy as well. And he did tell me that he had a version of NZPP in progress, but real life was getting in the way of finishing it. And it's now been a very long time since he first mentioned that. So I had been holding off on that airfield because he would make a better job of it than I would. But so much time has passed and we still have nothing. I think it's time to accept that it probably isn't going to happen anytime soon, if ever. Therefore, as one of my Explain 12 upgrades, Paraparaumu is now on that list of things to do. With the update from R3 Lindemann Ortho to R4, that left a couple of objects floating in the air. And there are other issues too, so it does need looking at. And I'm sure I can improve what we have now. But there is an area on South Island where I know I can send an email to Vincent, and he's happy to go to a place and get me lots of information and photos. We've done it enough times now where that's great, because he now understands what kind of information is useful to me and what kind of pictures I'd like him to take. And with any luck, I might be able to ask the same kind of thing with somebody else regarding NZPP, so keep your fingers crossed and we'll see what happens. Oh, by the way, big news in the bathroom again. You may recall how my previous spider ruler of the bathroom, King Alan VI, was probably eaten by the new and much bigger spider who then became King Alan VII. There's a runway out there somewhere, isn't there? Yeah, we'll find it. Yeah, well, after that first day when I did see the new King Alan VII, he disappeared. So I'm thinking, rather than a full takeover of the bathroom kingdom, Alan VII was more like a Viking or Mongol kind of raid, with a bit of rape, pillage, death and destruction, and he then buggered off again and probably went to the house next door, and may well have been making his way down the street ever since. So the bathroom kingdom has been without a Spider King for a while, but a few days ago I spotted a new guy in there, and I have seen him a couple of times since. So it does look like he has actually moved in, and so it is officially time to welcome the new spider ruler of my bathroom kingdom, King Alan VIII. Not sure how long he will last because he's not very big, so I don't hold out too much hope for him if a larger spider did appear one day. But he's there for now and it looks like he's enjoying himself. Although he probably wouldn't have enjoyed it last week after I had that curry, but that was just before he arrived, so fortunately for him he missed that one. Talking of missing things, hopefully we don't miss the runway. They should calm down a bit as we get closer to the ground, but this is probably not going to be a top 10 landing ever. that's way too much of a float. It's not good. Get down, get down. Yeah, that was a bit of a thud. We're alive. Yeah, that was floating a bit too far, wasn't it? Great. Ooh, think of that was a tail strike, wasn't it? And don't mind, just a bit of paint over it. Nobody will notice. That'll be fine. Yep. So welcome to NZPP Paraparaumu. Yeah, which will be getting an upgrade when Explain 12 comes along. Yeah, it wasn't too bad as it is. I'm not too sure. I've totally forgotten who made this airfield, because it's not one of mine. And can't think, but whoever it was, they did a very nice job of it for the time. But yeah, there are some custom buildings here, just some generic stuff as well. But yeah, for back when it was released, it was quite good. I think it can be improved now, so yeah, definitely on the list. Yeah, just go and park over here. There's a little fuel pump, isn't there? So that will do, we can go and park by that. That will do. So that was episode number 25 of the Just Flying series, with our trip to the going to be upgraded one day NZPP. Little chat about the new King Allen, global warming, and yeah, hopefully if you're one of those people where there are not human beings in your lounge at the moment but ducks, hopefully things work out better for you soon. So until to the next one then, I'll see you soon. Bye.